Hello students, after reading this module, you will be able to know the importance of strategy evaluation and control, identify the barriers to evaluation and know about the quantitative and qualitative criteria for evaluation of the strategies. It is said that strategic management without evaluation and control is just like playing football without any goal posts. Evaluation and control is one of the most important stages in strategic management process of an organization. It is one of the most difficult tasks to perform and is the final stage in the strategic management process. In the strategic management process, an organization has to set the objectives, formulate the strategies and achieve these objectives and undertake the implementation of the strategy. After the implementation of strategy, evaluation and control process ensures that a firm is achieving what it is set out to accomplish. Through evaluation and control, the strategists can decide whether the chosen strategy is in conformity with the objectives and whether the performance of task led to the achievement of objectives or not. Thus, strategic evaluation and control could be defined as the process of determining the effectiveness of a given strategy in achieving the organizational objectives and taking corrective action wherever it is required. In other words, it facilitates the management to evaluate how well the chosen strategy is implemented and how successful otherwise the strategy is. The process of evaluation is about how good the strategic plan of an organization and how they are being implemented. The information that has come during the evaluation process helps the strategists to enable better control and thus make better plans and improving the implementation process. So students, strategic evaluation, just like any other management process, is not a monolithic kind of a thing. It is also a stepwise process and it comprises of basically 5 interrelated steps. The first step is the management sets the performance targets and the standards and the tolerance limits. They measure the actual performance with the standards at a particular point of time. And the third stage is to identify the gap and the deviation from the expected standards. At the fourth stage, after identifying the deviations, next is to measure or analyze the deviations from the standard, the quantum of it, how far they are different from what has been earlier planned. And the final step is to incorporate the modifications, revise the strategy and the implementation process as well. All strategies are subject to future modifications because internal and external environment is dynamic and it keeps on changing. In the strategic management and control process, managers ascertain whether the chosen strategy to achieve objectives is yielding the desired results or not. The basic activities in the evaluation and control process are reviewing the internal and the external factors, and they are the basis for the current strategies, measuring performance and taking the corrective action wherever it is required. Evaluation and control process starts with assessment of performance, analyzing the situation and making corrective adjustments in the mission, objectives or even the strategy. So dear students, with this background, let us now focus on the importance of strategic evaluation and control. The managers take up the process of evaluation and control to know how good the strategic plans are, how well they have been implemented. Strategic evaluation, through its process of control, feedback, rewards and reviews, helps in reaching successful strategic management process, and the information derived from evaluation of the strategic plans allows the management to exercise better control. This increases the scope for improvement and implementation of the strategic plans. It also gives a direction. The process of evaluation and control enables the strategists to collect the information about how the strategic plan has been performing and then decide upon the action. Evaluation and control make sure that the organization is going in the right direction. Corrective action is taken wherever it is required. This also provides the guidance. Evaluation and control process provides guidance to the whole organization. Management and employees know what their actual performance is in comparison to the expected performance and what corrective action need to be taken in order to improve this performance. There is also a need within the organization to improve the performance. It also helps you to receive the feedback so that the good performers could be rewarded. This also gives a sense of confidence. The information about good performance inspires the confidence within the organization. If you are moving in the right direction, then it acts as a motivator for even better performance within the organization. Employees are likely to achieve better performance. And even outside the organization, the stakeholders such as the customers, the suppliers, the shareholders, they are also likely to be impressed when the organization is giving the good performance. The process of evaluation also provides you lots of data and lot of substantial information and experience which can be valuable for the future strategic planning by the top management. It also helps in checking the validity. The strategic evaluation tests the effectiveness of strategy and also the strategic choices that have been made even at the formulation stage. Sometimes you could have made a mistake even at the starting stage. So this evaluation and control is going to help you to rectify those. And of course, the strategic completion of the strategic management process is only when you have actually evaluated the strategy. Strategic evaluation process is the process of control, feedback, rewards and reviews, and it helps in the successful completion of the strategic management process. So with this background, let us now throw some light on the barriers to evaluation. Evaluation is not a smooth process. Within the organization, there can be certain barriers as well. Evaluation involves assessment of a firm's strategy. And you know, whenever you are subject to any kind of examination, there could be certain resistance. So some of the barriers which can be there in the strategic evaluation and control are, firstly, the limits of control. Any control system, by its nature, presents the problem of too much versus too less control. It may be easy job for the strategist to decide the limit of control. In the words of Bernard Russell, too little liberty brings stagnation and too much brings a chaos. Too less control can make strategic management process unnecessary and ineffective and can create difficulties in coordination and will promote discrimination and discriminate use of managerial discretion. On the other hand, too much of control can harm the ability of managers to take the decisions. This will negatively impact the creativity of management and create unnecessary barriers to efficient performance. Strategists must create a balance between too much and too less control. Second is the resistance to evaluation. The process of evaluation involves control, and you know, too much of control of individuals is always resisted. Such a resistance can be reduced when you have open communication between people, between the participants of the process of evaluation, as is the human tendency, particularly demonstrated by the top executives who have formulated the strategy to ignore negative signals that control system provides and highlight the positive signals regarding the strategy or the strategies they support. There can be also problems in terms of difficulties in measurement. The process of evaluation is faced with a very big problem of measurement. Basically, the reliability and validity of the measurement techniques is an issue, particularly when you're dealing with a qualitative kind of a data. The inability of the information systems to give timely and valid information and lack of performance standards or quantifiable organizational goals. The solution lies in dependable and validated measurement systems which you have to evolve within the organizations. You need to adopt standardized procedures for measurement, quantification of objectives as far as possible, and improving the quality of the information systems. Another resistance can be the short-term assessments. Managers have a tendency to measure the immediate results. What is it that I have achieved today, or my team has been able to achieve in a short run? And then you have to rely on short-term implications of the activities. You know, every short term will have its implications in long term as well. So strategic management is a long term process. The long term impact of strategy is often ignored because of the complexities involved in taking into account the long term implications of the activities. The managers need to change their emphasis from achieving short term gains to long term results to correct the short sightedness which can come up in this process. Another barrier is to depend on efficiency rather than effectiveness. Now these two terms need to be understood very clearly. Managers must be clear as to what represents an effective performance. There is a difference between efficiency, which basically means doing the right things, and effectiveness means doing right things. No doubt both are important, and sometimes both are confused. Now this can be a big deterrent. Sometimes performance that does not contribute to accomplishment of organizational goals may get rewarded if it is assessed on the basis of only efficiency, whereas measuring wrong parameters may result into a situation where the right type of performance does not get rewarded. The remedy basically lies in creating a sharp focus on effectiveness as opposed to the efficiency. So now students, let us discuss various types of strategic control. Strategic control is concerned with tracking of strategy as is being implemented, detecting the problems or changes in the assumptions and making the necessary adjustments. The increasing changes in the global marketplace have made the strategic control all or more necessary in managing the organization. The basic idea about strategic control is to regularly examine changing environmental systems to uncover the events that are likely to influence the strategic implementation and formulation and control process. Strategic control helps the strategists to answer certain set of questions. First question that a strategic control process that's going to answer is, are the premises or the assumptions which you have made during the strategy formulation process proving to be correct? Is the strategy guiding the organization towards its intended objectives being achieved? Are the organizations and managers doing the right set of things which ought to be done? Or is there a need to reformulate the strategy? The four types of strategic control are the premise control, the strategic surveillance, the special alert control, and the implementation control. Let us now understand each one of them. Premise control. Every strategy is based on defining the planning premises, the assumptions or the predictions. Premise control is the systematic explanation of the assumptions based on which strategy is based, to check whether the assumptions remain valid in changing environment or information. If the assumption is no longer applicable, then the strategy has to be changed. Premise control basically continuously tests the assumptions upon which the strategy has been based. Planning premises is concerned with the environmental and the industry factors. Environmental factors would include the macro as well as micro, such as your inflation, technology, interest rate, regulation, demographics, etc. And the industry factors would include the factors such as competitors, the suppliers, and even the barriers to entry. Premise control basically enables the strategies to take corrective action at the right time and then continuing with the strategy based upon the right set of assumptions. Second is the implementation control. Implementation of a strategy results in a series of plans, programs, and objectives. Once resource allocation has been done for implementation of the plans, the implementation control analyzes whether the plans, programs, and projects which are actually leading the organization towards predetermined objectives are being achieved or not. If not, it is observed that commitment of resources to plan, programmed or project would not be for the advantage of the organization as was anticipated and may need some kind of the revision. Hence, implementation control may lead to strategic rethinking. The next is the strategic surveillance. Strategic surveillance is unfocused and a more general form of control. They are devised to examine broad range of events inside and outside the organization that are likely to have an impact on the strategy. Strategic surveillance can help the organization to discover important yet unanticipated information by monitoring of multiple information sources. Trade conferences, conversations, business journals, and observations of various subjects, they all come within the scope of strategic surveillance. In addition to strategic surveillance, we also have what is known as special alert control. There can be situations when we really need some kind of a special alert. It works on the belief that hope for the best but be prepared for the worst. Special alert control is a rapid reconsideration of the firm's strategies based on some unexpected event which you had not anticipated or accounted for when you were formulating the strategy. Its unexpected occurrence may require immediate reassessment of the firm's strategy. Examples of such event could be sudden fall of government, or there could be some natural disaster, or there could be some industrial disaster, or any other thing that has not been planned earlier. So, with this, let us now throw some light on performance evaluation. The measurement of performance is an important part of evaluation and control. Management can evaluate the performance of an organization on the basis of qualitative data and quantitative data on two ways. First is the organization can compare the actual performance with the past achievements. Second is it compares the performance with the industry average, standard or benchmarks. And third is the firm's performance can be compared with those of its immediate competitors. So let's first of all understand the quantitative criteria which are used for strategic evaluation. Quantitative criteria are primarily financial in nature. After all, numbers speak. But there are also some important non-financial criteria which are things like absolute market share, relative market share, etc. Firms can evaluate their performances on annual basis on the criteria such as net profit, stock price, dividend rates, return on capital, return on equity, and sales growth. Firms can also evaluate performance on the basis of industry averages provided in the industry reports published in leading business newspapers and magazines. The following are likely to be certain quantitative financial criteria used for the strategic evaluation. Return on investment. Return on investment is simply the result of dividend gross net income before taxes by the total amount invested by a firm, typically measured by the total assets. Second parameter is return on equity. Return on equity is gross or net income on equity capital. Third is earnings per share. Earnings per share involve dividing the net earnings by the amount of common stock. Fourth is the relative profit growth. Relative profit growth is the growth of a firm's profit relative to that of the market leader or the closest competitor. And the fourth quantitative parameter that is used is the sales profit ratio, that is profit to sales ratio or the gross net profit in relation to the total sales. The quantitative or the non-financial criteria are listed as, firstly, the absolute market share. Absolute market share is a traditional measure or indicator of the performance of a firm. Second is the relative market share, which is also a better indicator of the competitive performance vis-a-vis an industry. Third is actual to target sales ratio. This is the growth in the actual sales or the turnover to the target sales. Relative sales ratio. Relative sales ratio is a growth in the sale of a firm so that to that of the market leader or the closest competitor. The evaluation of performance through quantitative data has got certain limitations. The major obstacle of quantitative data is the difficulty in measurement. Problems are faced in the choice of a unit, gross or net concepts, and the reference periods. Correct measurement depends upon information or database, return on equity, profitability, earnings per share, etc. Incomplete and adequate databases, they can give you faulty and inaccurate results. Also, different accounting methods may give different results for many quantitative indicators. In addition to quantitative indicators, there are also a set of qualitative criteria. The qualitative criteria has certain limitations for overall assessment of performance. There can be set of qualitative criteria or the subjective assessment of the factors such as the skill, the capability, the core competence, management motivation, commitment, risk-bearing capacity, strategic clarity, flexibility, and workability. The qualitative criteria are more important than the quantitative criteria because of certain characteristics. The qualitative criteria can be evaluated even before the strategic implementation stage. A number of criteria have been recommended by the strategic analysts. For example, TILES has posed 6 questions which can be helpful in evaluating the strategies. The following 6 questions are: firstly, is the strategy internally consistent? Is the strategy compatible with the environment? Is the strategy appropriately considering the available resources of an organization? The fourth question is, does the strategy involve acceptable degree of risk? Fifth is, does the strategy have an appropriate time frame? And the sixth question is the strategy really workable or practicable? Answers to these questions give strategists significant qualitative directions of the strategy. The 3 qualitative criteria which are used for strategic evaluation are its consistency, appropriateness, and workability. Consistency is the compatibility of a strategy with the organizational objectives, goals, internal conditions, and major environmental factors. So students, in addition to consistency, there is the second criteria, that's appropriateness. Appropriateness of a strategy is basically using the strategy to be evaluated in reference to the organizational resources, the capabilities, and the risk preference and the time horizon. Workability basically checks the strategy with regards to its feasibility and practicability in terms of the implementation. Rumelt has conducted a more elaborate analysis on evaluation of business strategies. He has recommended 4 qualitative criteria and suggests that these criteria should be used for assessment of the strategy. The first 2, connaissance advantage, focus on the external environment, while the next 2, consistency and feasibility, focus on the internal environment. Connaissance refers to the fit or match between the organizational strategy and the environment. The strategic development should take into account various changes and trends in the external environment. Rumelt has very rightly observed the key to evaluating connaissance is not understanding why businesses currently stands, exists, and how it assumed the current pattern with respect to the environment. In addition to connaissance, the next important qualitative parameter is the advantage. Advantage refers to the ability of a strategy to produce competitive advantage in its product or business. Competitive advantage is generally the result of superiority of an organization in one or more 3 stages: the tangible resources, the skills, and position in the market. An organization can secure positional advantage through its size, the scale of operation, the leadership, and the intangible resources like the brand image and credit rating. The third qualitative criteria is the consistency. Consistency refers to the internal consistency and is a necessary condition for any policy or strategy. Every organization has certain goals, objectives, policy, and mission. These should not be in conflict with the organizational goals and objectives. Sometimes strategic inconsistencies can take place within the departments, or there can be interdepartmental dysfunctional or functional conflicts. And the fourth qualitative parameter is the feasibility test of the strategy. Feasibility means basically the feasibility in terms of implementing ability, which can be in terms of the existing physical, financial and the human resources of the organization. Although physical and financial resources are quantifiable, human resources, their skills, their competencies, their capabilities are not really easily quantifiable. Feasibility criteria basically examines whether the organization has demonstrated managerial capabilities and commitment to successfully implement the strategies. So with this, students, we come to the end of the module, and now let us briefly recapitulate what we have learned so far. We have learned that the process of evaluation and control play a major role in strategic management. Their role is to critically analyze what we are doing and what we are not at every stage of the strategic management process and take corrective actions wherever necessary or improve the performance. Strategic evaluation and control tests the effectiveness of the strategy. The process of evaluation and control also ensures that the organization is headed in the right direction, provide information and guidance on how good performance can be achieved, and inspire confidence in the organization's ability to produce the desired results, check validity of a strategy, and helps in the successful culmination of the strategic management process. There can be barriers to implementation and evaluation of the strategy, and these barriers are the difficulties in measurement, resistance to evaluating, and limits of control. The short-term assessment and relying on efficiency versus effectiveness is a major barrier. We have also learned about the premise controls, the strategic surveillance, special alert controls, and implementation controls as four basic types of strategic control. All these controls are devised to meet the top management needs, track strategy as is being implemented, to identify the underlying problems, circumstances or assumptions surrounding the strategy, and to make the necessary adjustments. We have also studied about the performance evaluation, which can be on the basis of qualitative as well as quantitative criteria. Quantitative criteria are basically financial in nature and usually refer to the subjective measurement of the factors such as sales and growth and return on investment. The qualitative criteria refers to the subjective evaluation or subjective examination of the factors such as capabilities, core competencies, and risk-bearing capacity, strategic clarity, flexibility, and workability. We have also learned that no measure is going to tell us what we need to know. Therefore, strategists should use a mix of the say qualitative as well as qualitative measures, and they should not just rely only on the traditional measures of measuring the financial results, but also consider the qualitative criteria as well. Thank you.